the greatest revolutionary to walk on American soil. Not black, but period, in my opinion. About 3 weeks ago, October 16th, I was on my way to speak to the students at Howard University, and Spirit told me that I was overdue for a visit to the Harpers Ferry Federal Park, what do we call that, National Monument. For those of y'all who are not familiar, John Brown, who was a European, he led a raid on the Army Arsenal at Harpers Ferry, Virginia. If you haven't been to that national monument, I recommend you check it out. It was very breathtaking to go and see. And although we often hear about John Brown and his greatness, and he's one of the few Caucasians I have any respect for, but often left out of that narrative are the 5 black men who were with John Brown. The first to die, a black man named Dangerfield Newby. His wife was scheduled to be sold deep into slavery very soon, and she wrote him a letter asking him to liberate her and his children before the sale took place. That's why he joined John Brown. He was the first one to die on October the 16th. One of the white citizens of Harpers Ferry, Virginia, shot a rifle, and out of that rifle came a railroad spike. They didn't have any bullets, so they used railroad spikes and it cut his neck right in half. And then the white people came out and did what they always do. They did it to the prophet Nat Turner's body. They mutilated it. They skinned him. They took pieces of his body as souvenirs. And then you had another black man by the name of Lewis Sheridan Leary, who died trying to escape. He was shot and murdered. And then you had 2 other brothers who were caught and then hanged later. One was Shields Green. There's a movie out called Emperor. I think it's on Hulu or Netflix. It's about the life of Shields Green, who was the grandson of an African prince, I believe, who was enslaved in Charleston. He ran away from Charleston to freedom, met Frederick Douglass, lived with him, and then he ultimately joined John Brown. And he could have got away, but he didn't want to leave John Brown alone in that house. And so he came back and he ultimately was captured and hanged, just like John Brown would be. And then you had another brother by the name of John Anthony Copeland. He also was hanged next to Shields Green on the very same day. A very dignified brother. And then the only black man to get away was a brother by the name of Osborne Anderson, who actually once worked with one of our mothers of black nationalism, Queen Mother Mary Ann Shadd. Black women, you should do your research on Mary Ann Shadd. She's the first woman on the North American continent to publish a newspaper called the Provincial Freedom. She was an Underground Railroad station master, a newspaper publisher. She's from Wilmington, Delaware. And I'm even contemplating naming the school in her honor, that particular campus, because we want to have many more after we get the Wilmington campus up and running. She's from Wilmington, Delaware, very, very powerful woman. And the motto for her newspaper, the Provincial Freedom, is self-determination is the road to liberation. Now, mind you, this is in the 1840s. This is almost 200 years ago, and this black woman said self-determination is the road to liberation. And once Frederick Douglass was writing in his newspaper, the Frederick Douglass paper, and he was asking for opinions on what black people could do to liberate themselves. And Queen Mother Mary Ann Shadd, she wrote to Frederick Douglass, not speaking to him directly, but to black people in general, and she said, quote, "Less talk, more action."
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was in 1840, and Negroes were still lazy. That was in 1840, black people were still procrastinating. You know, I heard the sister speak a moment earlier, and she talked about how you need to get you a buggy, a 2-wheeler, 4-wheeler, to be able to navigate through the woods, and she's definitely on point. But there's another piece I want to add to that, which I'm sure she has covered in her paperwork, and she's thought this through. But another thing that we often overlook when we talk about disaster preparedness and martial law in this country is the need for us to have our own boats and rafts. Because one of the things that they're going to do in order to contain people, especially African people, is they're going to blow up the bridges. Many of you saw what happened in Maryland a couple of weeks ago when the ship ran through the bridge. I believe that was a test run. I believe they wanted to see if that boat was strong enough to bring down the bridge, and it was. And you all know the bridges in the DMV, the Maryland bridges, the Virginia bridges, they're very high and very skinny, right? So we got to make sure we have some boats. We might can't have ships, but you need to have a boat, because if they tear those bridges down and you have to get from this side of the water to the other side of the water, you're going to need a raft. And if I go back to the days of our ancestors, they often used ships to escape, right? They would either make their own ship, but they would steal ships from the plantation and escape by way of ship. So for example, the ancestors who came from Virginia and who came from Maryland, they often crossed over the Delaware Bay into New Jersey, because at that time New Jersey had become a free state. They eliminated their slavery, I believe, in 1804, might have been the year New Jersey passed their Emancipation Act. So if you were running away from Virginia and Maryland, you had to sneak through Delaware, up to Maryland, over to Delaware, and then cross the Delaware Bay. And for those of you who are familiar with Queen Mother Harriet Tubman, she spent a lot of time in Cape May, New Jersey. She even worked in Cape May, New Jersey, because she often served as one of the engineers and guides for people to take ships from Maryland, from Virginia, over to New Jersey. And as you know, on the East Coast, especially in the DMV area, there's a lot of water. You're not getting out of the DMV without ship. So yes, we need the 2-wheelers and the 4-wheelers, but we also need ships. Very important. And if we do go to martial law, and I think America will at some point, we have to make sure we have a contingency plan for our elders and our disabled. We don't talk about them enough. Remember, Harriet Tubman's parents were disabled, and she was still able to free them by using a horse and a carriage that was loaned to her by a Caucasian in Wilmington, Delaware, who might be the only other Caucasian I have that level of respect for, by the name of Thomas Garrett. Good friend of Harriet Tubman. He helped more of our ancestors escape on the Underground Railroad than any other station master on the Underground Railroad in America. Okay, he gave Harriet the horse and carriage she used to free her mother and her father. So Harriet Tubman, even with all the work she was doing, she still found time to go and bring her disabled parents to freedom, brothers and sisters. And I'm bringing this up because I believe that when America does go to martial law, or when the white man does declare civil war on African people in this country, because that's not a foregone conclusion as well. Okay, that's very possible. That is right in the realm of possibilities for white people to decide it's time to exterminate the Negro, and you need to be conscious of the fact that if they do decide to declare war against us, every so-called people of color that we've been holding hands with, fighting for, and identifying with, they're going to side with the Caucasians. The Latino is going to side with the Caucasian. I'm not talking about our African Latino brothers and sisters who wave the red, black, and green and consider themselves Africans. I'm not talking about them. But most of the Latinos in the country, I think we would all agree, are in fact anti-African. And if the time came, they would gladly stand in unison with the white man. The Asian will gladly stand in unison with the white man. The Arab will gladly stand in unison with the white man. But we need to understand something. All these groups, at one time or another, were considered white in this country. Mexicans were once considered white in this country. Do your research. East Indians were considered white in this country. Arabs right now are considered white in this country. Japanese sued in federal court to be called white in this country, but they lost. So when we say people of color, who are you talking about? Right. Because the only color they want to be is white.
Right, that's right, that's right.
We have no friends, nor do we need them.
That's right.
But I want you to understand this. History going to repeat itself. Because the same way Nat Turner and many of our ancestors ran into the swamps and into the rivers and into the lakes in order to hide and form those maroon colonies, we may have to do the same thing, brothers and sisters. So when I heard that sister talk about navigating the woods, I'm going to say navigating the woods and the water. We need to start learning that right now. I went to a military high school, and anybody who's ever been in the military, y'all know this. They teach you not only map reading, but they teach you land topography and how to read the land based on the topographical maps. We need to start having classes teaching our people how to read and understand maps. Not just the maps that show distance and area, but the maps that show water and height. Right. Very important that we get into that. Also, regionally, we should have storage locations where we keep and drinkable water. Storage locations where we're keeping non-perishable food. Black people are not prepared for an emergency. And it's hard for us to get prepared because, number one, we trust white people too much. That's right. Black people trust white people with their very breath. We trust them with our children. We trust them with our parents. That's right. We trust them with our retirement. That's right. We trust them with everything. So number one, we trust them too much to even think they would do something like that. And number two, unfortunately, most of us have an artificial religious insurance card that has us believing that in the final day, Jesus will pop up from somewhere to save life. I don't have an issue with religion. Religion is fine, but beliefs, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ridiculous intellectual conclusions we draw based on the things we believe spiritually. We have to do away with that. Brothers and sisters, at this time, in honor of the prophet Nat Turner, who on this day, 193 years ago, 193 years ago, was hanged from a tree not too far from where we're sitting at. And in honor of the prophet Nat, I would like to have a moment of silence. Black power. Black power. You know, in 7 years' time, we will be celebrating the bicentennial of Nat Turner's revolution. That's right. August the 21st of 2031. I would argue that we owe it to Prophet Nat to make sure he didn't sacrifice his life in vain by having a 7-year plan by that time. We should have a 7-year plan, call it the Prophet Nat Turner plan if you want. But by August the 21st of 2031, this should be a filed and foolproof plan that black people can implement in order to save ourselves. The reason I brought up John Brown's raid in Harper's Ferry is John Brown was influenced by the prophet Nat Turner. Right. He actually said out of his own mouth that Nat Turner was an influence on what he did. Yes, sir. And what sometimes bothers me about our people is we will put John Brown on a plateau higher than the one we put the prophet Nat Turner on. Right. So if John Brown was inspired by Nat Turner, how is it his name is heard everywhere and not the prophet Nat Turner? Why do we hear John Brown's name and not the 5 black men who fought and died with John Brown? So we have a very bad habit of worshiping Caucasians. That's right. And we need to recognize black people, as my Bible said over here, my good elder, New World Order. The poverty we suffer from is not a financial one. Go ahead. The poverty we suffer from is not a skills-based poverty where we don't know how to do plumbing or roofing, or we don't know how to invest the money, or we don't know how to build institutions. We know how to do all of that because we've done it before with less.
That's right.
As he said, the poverty is a poverty of mentality, a poverty of spirituality, and a poverty of culture.
Yes, it is.
And the elephant in the room, brothers and sisters, is the fact that we don't really want to cooperate with each other.
That's right. That's it.
And because we don't want to cooperate with each other, we always give the enemy the opportunity to co-opt us. And so whenever black people don't want to cooperate, the Caucasian can co-opt your future, co-opt your destiny, co-opt your life. 6 days ago, black people were up in arms because the South Asian Indian presidential candidate lost the race. And I'm trying to figure out black people crashing out because Kamala lost. And I said to myself, what did she promise Negroes? And then on the flip side, I saw Republican Party plantation slaves celebrating Donald Trump's victory. And again, I ask the question, what did this orange man promise us that would have you celebrate? And see, this is where, going to the Bible's point that poverty of mentality, we suffer from the illusion of inclusion. That race has nothing to do with African people. That race has nothing to do with our community. Neither party, red or blue plantation, had any cotton for you to pick. But we still felt the need to include ourselves in something that had nothing to do with you. The only difference from a Trump presidency versus a Harris presidency is Donald Trump is going to give you more of the same. Old white classical racism. He's going to push back anything you gain. He's going to tear it apart and burn it up. Kamala Harris was going to do the same thing, but in another way. She was simply going to promote the brown and yellow and red people above you and let them carry out the racist agenda against Africans. But there's something really important we need to watch. That election showed you that the most important so-called minority group in this country now, for the Caucasian, are the Latinos.
Right, that's right.
Kamala Harris got 85% of the black vote and still lost. Because Donald Trump carried the Latinos.
Right.
So for those of y'all who've been talking black and brown, you better get over that. Brown people are not for you and they're not with you. We're not demonizing them, we're not castigating them, we're not demoralizing them, we're simply saying that we have no friends. Brothers and sisters, one of the reasons we've been running in quicksand for so long is we are out of divine alignment. Now we got to make sure we distinguish between religious doctrine and divine alignment. Religious doctrine may help you achieve divine alignment, but it is not divine alignment in and of itself. You can be divinely aligned with no religion at all. Divine alignment speaks to the quality of your spiritual connection to divine intelligence. And that divine alignment supersedes any religion. Religion can get you there, or you can get there yourself. One of the reasons the prophet Nat Turner was so stunningly effective, he was in divine alignment. He got the dreams because he was in divine alignment. are outside of our minds. Many of us are receiving messages from demons when we think they're coming from God. Brothers and sisters, 8 days from now, the planet Pluto goes into Aquarius for the first time in more than 225 years. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the Haitian Revolution. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the American Revolution. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French Revolution. Pluto, a planet of destroy and rebuild, the rebirth of reality, to tear down anything that no longer serves divine design, so that a new earth can be created. Aquarius is the sign of revolt and revolution. It's the sign of going against the grain. It's the sign of finding a new way to do an old thing. So when these two energies meet up in the next 8 days, November 19th, they will be together for the next 18 years. So I'm saying that if you're 30 years old, from now until when you're 50, there will be drama, chaos, and revolution like you've never seen. If you're 50 years old, until you're 70, there will be drama, chaos, mayhem, and conflict like you've never seen. But this is not in the service of evil, but it could be if good people do nothing. Yeah. It is in service of the divine if good people get up and take heed to the universe's ability to give us a chance to reset the cosmic wheel. We are not meant to be last.
That's right.
African people were never intended to be last. And our being last has absolutely nothing to do with divine decree. God didn't put you in slavery. We allowed it. God didn't Jim Crow you. We allowed it. God didn't take a $2 trillion people and reduce them to video games and YouTube. You allowed it. But because black people don't like to take responsibility for our own actions, anything we do that we don't want to be responsible for, we pass it on to God. You notice how we do that? And we pray for what we need and waste all our money on what we want. Them same Negroes who was crying 6 days ago about a South Asian Indian loser, they're going to be shopping for Thanksgiving. They're going to have some Bill Gates turkey. They're going to have some Bill Gates collard greens, some Bill Gates beef tongue. They're going to have a whole Thanksgiving table full of Bill Gates' farm food. Or should I say, non-food. And then, after they waste all that money on Thanksgiving, celebrate the slaughter of indigenous peoples. The very next day, on White Friday, we want to go out and initiate the economic holocaust. See, black people love being downtrodden so much that every year we go broke on purpose to stay at the bottom. Let me say that again. Go ahead. Every year, from Thanksgiving to New Year, to make sure we stay underneath white people, we voluntarily hemorrhage our economic capital on nothing to make sure we stay in the Caucasian. We are so unique in America that we can't even see it. We're unique because we're the only people sending their children to their enemies to be taught. We're unique because we're the only people who will not cooperate for their own survival. We're unique. We're one of the only groups who still worship God in the image of their enemy. We are unique because we're the only people acting like other people can't tell where we come from. Brothers and sisters, time is running out. And it's running out quickly. We got to get organized financially. We got to get organized economically. We got to get organized socially. We have to stop letting the white man's agenda disrupt our focus.
Right.
The reason we are where we are is there's not enough concentration on liberation. Very little concentration on liberation. We got a lot of concentration on Little Dirk. A lot of concentration on Sean Combs. A lot of concentration on Kamala Harris. A lot of concentration on Donald Trump. But where is the concentration on our own liberation? Freedom ain't free.
That's right.
And it damn sure isn't to me.
That's right.
And the problem with us is we want a convenient revolution.
That's right.
I had black people say all the time, Dr. Umar, are we sure this is going to work? Was George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton sure they would beat the British when they declared independence? Was Miles